Toro, deceased. Real name, Thomas Toro Raymond. Occupation, circus fire eater, later adventurer, later occupation unknown. Identity, secret. Legal status, American citizen with no criminal record. Other aliases, Human Torch 1, while amnesiac. Place of birth, New York City. Place of death, an island in the Pacific Ocean. Marital status, married. Known survivors, Anne, wife. Group affiliation, Invaders, Kid Commandos, All Winners Squad. First modern appearance, Submariner number 14. Final appearance, Submariner number 14. History. Fred Raymond, a young man in the employ of Professor Phineas T. Horton, who would later create the original Human Torch, see Vision, was an expert on flame-proofing who was conducting experiments with asbestos. Long-time exposure to asbestos ruined Raymond's health, and he left Horton's employ. Soon afterwards, Raymond married Nora Jones, a scientist who was herself seriously ill from overexposure to radium in her experiments. They honeymooned in Mexico, and 9 months later, their son Thomas was born. They nicknamed him Toro, the Spanish word for bull, as a private joke in memory of the bullfights they had seen on their honeymoon. As Thomas grew into boyhood, his parents realized that they would both probably die from their illnesses before he became an adult. However, they discovered that Thomas was immune to fire, and Nora theorized that he was a mutant. One day, the Raymonds' home was invaded by a costumed criminal named the Asbestos Lady and her gang. The Asbestos Lady utilized fire in her crimes, protecting herself with asbestos, and intended to force Raymond to develop new means by which she could use asbestos in crime. The original Human Torch, who had been watching the Raymonds' home, suspecting that the Asbestos Lady would contact such a noted authority on asbestos, broke in and captured the gang. The Asbestos Lady, however, escaped. The Torch learned about Thomas's immunity to fire from his parents and decided to keep watch over the Raymonds, both to protect them from the Asbestos Lady and to monitor Thomas's development. Soon afterwards, Fred Raymond learned that his wife had only a few more weeks to live. He kept the news from her and instead hurriedly arranged a vacation trip for the family, which would be Nora's last. They embarked on the trip by train, but the Asbestos Lady, obsessed with making up for her failure to capture Raymond, had a huge tree trunk placed on the tracks. The train hit the trunk and was derailed and wrecked. Fred and Nora Raymond died when the train burst into flames, but Thomas escaped. A married team of circus fire eaters, Tom and Ellie Alexander, were driving by and saw Thomas rushing into the flames unharmed to try to find his parents. Moved by both sympathy for the orphan's plight and by the realization that he would prove a boon to their act, the Alexanders decided to take him under their wing. But weeks later, news reports began to spread about the amazing boy fire eater and his immunity to flame. The original Human Torch and the Asbestos Lady simultaneously realized who Toro was, and each set out to find him. The Human Torch captured the Asbestos Lady and her gang, and then headed for the circus where Toro was performing. As the Torch approached Toro, his presence caused Toro to burst into flame like the Torch himself, but while remaining unharmed. The Torch realized that Toro had the same powers that he himself did. The Torch became Toro's legal guardian and trained Toro in the use of his powers. The original Human Torch and Toro became a crime-fighting team. When the United States entered World War II, the original Torch and Toro became founding members of the Invaders. See, Invaders. Toro remained with the Invaders for the length of the war, except when he was serving with the Kid Commandos. See, Kid Commandos. news. Toro was present when the original Human Torch killed Adolf Hitler, and after the war, Toro and the Torch continued with the invaders under its new name, the All Winners Squad. In 1949, criminals paralyzed the Torch and Toro with a spray of Solution XR, which they had obtained from the Soviet Union. The criminals left Toro behind, believing him to be no real threat without his mentor, and buried the Torch in the Nevada desert. Toro retired from crime fighting upon recovering. In December 1953, an atomic bomb test released the Torch, who resumed his partnership with Toro for 2 more years. But the Torch discovered that the radiation he had absorbed from the bomb blast was causing him to malfunction. He bid farewell to Toro and flew to the desert, where he emitted a burst of energy and became deactivated. Toro eventually realized that the Torch had died, and so Toro retired from crime fighting, married, and led a normal life in relative obscurity. Years later, the Mad Thinker, Mad Thinker, found and reactivated the Torch and forced him to try to destroy the Fantastic Four. The Torch was deactivated, supposedly permanently, in the course of the battle, although he would later be reprogrammed and rebuilt to be the Vision. Funeral services were announced for the original Torch, and Thomas Raymond decided to attend. The Mad Thinker confronted Raymond outside the cemetery and drugged him. When Toro awoke, the drug had given him partial amnesia, and the Thinker convinced him that he was the original Human Torch. Moreover, the Thinker had fastened a collar around Toro's neck through which he could induce enough pain to force Toro to act as his servant. However, in a battle between Toro and the Submariner, the collar was damaged so that it could not hurt him, and Toro joined forces with the Submariner against the Thinker. During ensuing events, Toro's full memory returned. Enraged at the Thinker for enslaving and brainwashing him, Toro attacked the Thinker, who was escaping in a skycraft. Toro entered the ship's rocket tubes and used his own power to propel it towards the Thinker's Pacific Island laboratory, where the ship crashed and exploded. The Thinker escaped through a teleportation device, but Toro was destroyed in the crash. Height: as invader, 5 feet 4 inches. As adult, 5 feet 11 inches. Weight: as invader, 115 pounds. As adult, 170 pounds. Eyes: blue. Hair: black. Powers: Toro was a mutant who possessed the same powers as Johnny Storm, the current Human Torch. Human Torch. Basically, Toro could generate plasma, the hottest state of matter, about his body without being harmed, and also create shapes composed of fire. Toro could generate temperatures ranging up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. He could also fly while in his flaming state and reach speeds of up to 150 miles per hour. Like his mentor, the original Human Torch, Toro could also absorb flames into himself without harm, unless he did so to excess, and could telekinetically control even flames he did not himself create.